justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhyme that are coming from my
Good
mind.
morning, good morning, everybody. This is episode 32, I think, of the 476ers podcast. I haven't done any solo episodes in a while, so it's not like the episodes are really running high, which I'm going to start again next week. I plan on it because sometimes I just got to get things off my chest. Anyway, we have a guest today. As you can see, hopefully I've changed the format of Zoom so that this works better. So Vic, say hello.
Yo.
Now you can see both of our lovely faces, but probably everyone will be focused on his more, so thank God. Everybody, welcome to the podcast. Today we have a couple things that we're going to talk about. First, we'll talk about some headlines, some basic headlines going on in the NBA. I think there's a few things. There's enough. There's really just two big headlines enough that we can, I think, fill it up. And then we're going to talk about some players that, and this was Vic's idea, some players that if we could put them in a time machine and bring them in today's NBA, maybe they'd even have a better career. And you know, just to tease it, Vic, I don't know about you. I think I only have one Hall of Famer on mine. I don't know if any of your guys are in the Hall of Fame.
Nah.
I have one guy who's in the Hall of Fame. I think he's in the Hall of Fame. I'm pretty sure he is. And yeah, so let's get it popping. So first and foremost, the main thing, the NBA is trying to come back. Now, there are a couple things being floated around. It's kind of hard to tell what is not just smoke and what is the actual fire. First, it started with and maybe I'm crazy. We talked yesterday, and I said I thought that. So I'm sorry. Let me take a backtrack. So they're talking about right now is essentially renting out Disney World for a month or however long they need to do it, packing all the NBA teams and players and executives in Disney World, essentially make Disney World into a real life Westworld where the hosts are basketball players. And we are the the people that come in for our enjoyment to watch. Now I wrote a poem about this on my website because I am distinguished like that about why I don't think that's like a great idea. You're pulling away players from their families and like their loved ones for like a 6 to 8 week period essentially, and saying you're not going to see anybody you love. You're just going to be here. So that's the basic premise. There was talks about Vegas. Yesterday we talked. I said maybe they would do the West out on Vegas, the East out in Orlando, but then that would not be a lot of balance because then all the West teams have to play each other. It'd be a fucking bloodbath. And the East it'd be a bloodbath in a different way. It'd be a bloodbath like the Mayan temples sacrificing villagers to like the sun. I don't know what to think, Vic. What do you think about this? I mean, I don't even know if it's worth it, honestly.
Yeah, it seems like it's definitely to get to that 70 game mark so that the league doesn't have to pay back any money to advertisers and TV contracts like ESPN and TNT. But I don't know. It definitely wouldn't be any fans, so it would still be playing in kind of like an empty gym. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the idea that playing in an empty gym would like feel super weird. I mean, it wouldn't feel the same. There wouldn't be the same kind of energy. But we're still talking about guys that are super competitive.
Yeah.
And it's still going to be televised if they do it. So they're going to play hard, but it would definitely be weird. It would feel like summer league games, basically.
Yep. Yeah, it's also going to be weird seeing guys celebrate threes. Like, who is Robin Lopez going to do the tea time 3-pointer to? If he hits one, he's going to do it to his team. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, they would do those things no matter who was watching.
You think so?
I know so.
Okay.
Yeah, I know so. Yeah, like watching these guys, sports is great because it's reality TV with no script.
Yeah.
Right. We're like in reality TV, like people are picked because they know that they're going to clash. Right? These guys are doing what they're always going to do. But it would be funnier though to see them act in those kind of ways without like any response.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I coach high school, and like sometimes we don't get a lot of spectators. People still talking shit. People still celebrating. They doing their thing. It's about the competitiveness, but it's definitely a money grab. And they would have to keep everybody in one location, because then if not, you still have to put them on planes and expose them to other people.
Yeah.
So like last I saw, like literally last night, was it being Disney World, and like just closing the whole park and giving it to the NBA for however long it takes. But I don't know. Like did you hear Steve Kerr when he was asked about it, and he was like, basically in like in the most like political way he can, he's like, please don't fucking make us do this.
Yeah.
Like, we have nothing left to prove here. Let this just be over.
Yeah, it's important to know too that Disney owns ESPN, and it's like you said, this is a money grab. I was talking to somebody last night about this, and that's what I said. I mean, the TV money is not guaranteed. You know what I mean? The TV money is to a certain extent. Now, obviously, it's almost guaranteed, like death and taxes, because you don't expect the season to get canceled for no particular reason. I mean, this has come out of nowhere. So, yeah, the NBA wants to guarantee that money. We're talking about hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars in possible lost revenue, no ticket sales, no merchandising at stadiums. So, of course, the owners want to do this. What's interesting, too, is that LeBron wants to do this. I think he kind of sees tea leaves, maybe the ending of his career, thinks he has a great opportunity to win a championship, and doesn't seem like he's, is it in the best interest? I mean, he's thinking in his best interest. This is one of his weaker public moments. You know what I mean? For all the great stuff he's done, that, like, his tweet last night wasn't the wisest thing. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to make sense. Now, I don't know what to say. I don't think they should do this. I would love to see sports as just a distraction, and the government wants this to happen. Not to get too government and political and shit like that, but like they want this to happen. You know what I mean? Because it's a distraction. It's to serve as a distraction from missteps and failures by our administration, essentially. Not to get too fucking into it, but this just seems like if the government wants it to happen, you should be thinking maybe it's not a great idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it shouldn't have been. I don't know if LeBron's biggest motivation is to try and win a championship, because this would be a weird one no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. He's losing money too.
Yeah,
he has to get back part of his salary. His shoes aren't selling because people can't go to stores. I don't know if you saw. I got an Instagram ad this morning. I forget. I don't know if it was NBA.com or Fanatics or whichever one of these companies. 60% off jerseys right now. 60%.
Luckily, because you mentioned that, my phone is going to pop up that ad momentarily, I'm sure, when I look at Instagram later. You know what I mean?
The thing is like, no one is spending money, right? And even if you do, like, I bought a WNBA hoodie. It's never going to come. Like, the only emails I'm getting are like, sorry, we have no idea when it's coming. And it's cool. Like, I'm not pressed about it. But it's like, it's also the same thing. Like, when you buy something, you want it to come and like as fast as can. If there's no end in sight, you're like, I'll buy it later.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, like the reason that the executive office is taking so much heat, because life is so different.
Yeah.
Right? If he can get life to as normal as possible, then we can become complacent again, and we can act like everything is normal, but it's not.
Yeah.
But no, they shouldn't. I mean, and it sucks. Like, people losing money sucks, but these people will be all right.
Yeah, correct. We're talking about millionaires and billionaires, and that's really the thing that I try to stress to people is like fucking Elon Musk or something, who to me is like the fakest smart person in the history of fucking mankind. If you're basing your decision making on what Elon Musk is saying or something like that, and it's not to point out Elon Musk, but he's just one of the more vocal people.
Yeah.
If you're basing your decision making on what they're saying, then you need to reevaluate. Your life is not their life. You know what I mean? You cannot fucking relate. They're about to spend a month in Disney World. For us to spend a week in Disney World, you're going to have to mortgage your future. You know what I mean? They're going to get to go there for fucking free and hang out with their homies and play basketball all fucking day. It's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
All right. So aside from that, let's talk about some logistic things with this. There's just a couple things I want to point out. I just pulled up the standings. So we're not exactly sure what this is going to consist of. But I want to go out on a fantasy limb here, because there has been suggestions that there would maybe be like 5 games played and then a play-in tournament for the playoffs, okay, where every team is eligible possibly, which I think is banging. Really is banging because of injuries. Like, no one gives a shit with the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers are never going to stand a chance. The Hawks are never going to stand a chance. The Pistons are never going to stand a chance. But a team like the Nets could get Kyrie and get Kevin Durant back to do this, and that would suck for the rest of the league. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, this play-in tournament has the Nets maybe not being favorites, but being dangerous enough. Who else we got? There's a couple there was one other one that I was thinking. There's the Nets. Portland would get Nurkic back probably in time, which is another like shitty thing for everybody. And what's the other major injury I'm missing here?
All the Warriors guys.
The Warriors guys they would play the Lakers in the first round. It'd be fan-fucking-tastic. Damn, who is it? There's somebody here I'm missing. Hold on. I can't remember, but it would be interesting to say the least. I think. What do you think about a one-team tournament? I mean, like a one-game tournament. You know what I mean? Like maybe even for the first 2 rounds, right? Because the first round shortens it to. I mean, you would have to have a bye. 15 teams in each conference. So let's say the Lakers and Bucks get a bye, right?
You'd have to give probably the first 4 seeds a bye.
Well, you'd have to have
teams.
even numbers. Whatever it is.
There's 30 teams, so you take 4, it'd be 26 teams in the first round.
Or you do 3 teams. No, you do 3. Whatever. I'm not going to do the math right now. It's too much work. I mean, what do you think? The Thunder get healthy? There's a couple teams here that if they get healthy, you would have to be worried about them, I would think. What do you think about this possibility? I mean, a one-game play-in tournament, and I think that could be a window into something. I mean, well, no, actually, more importantly, this is a window into the midseason tournament that Silver's been talking about. This gives him a chance to fuck around with it.
So if this was to happen, then I don't want them to call this an NBA championship.
Okay.
Because if they're going to do this, then I would not like this, because then the best team more than likely wouldn't win. It'd be March Madness. And like you see with March Madness every year, on very rare occasions, is the Final Four chalk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very, very rare is it the top 4 1 seeds, and then you have a 1-on-1, 1 versus 1 rather. Championship. So I'm not with it unless it's just something different. Unless it's just a tournament, just to have something and then have some kind of incentives. Mm-hmm. I would much because I think it devalues all the work that was done in the regular season.
Okay.
So I would rather it be a regular playoff, or even like top 6 instead of the top 8 on both sides. But if they do that, I wouldn't mind having the bottom half of the league have their own tournament with draft pick implications.
Well, then that would suck. Well, and I'm sorry, the other team would be the Wizards that I was thinking about having John Wall back. Apparently John Wall thinks he's about to shit on the league.
Okay.
I like John Wall. So, and to your point, if you did the bottom teams tournament and you got like a John Wall versus Dame Lillard situation going, I mean, shit, yeah, I'd pay money to watch that.
Yeah, for sure.
With Steph. The bottom tournament might be as fun as the top tournament, honestly. But I think mostly I think is really a single elimination to decide the playoff teams. And then doing a best of 5 series after that. I mean, I'm down to see upsets. You know what I mean? And I think that I just think like watching the Blazers beat the Rockets and watching Dame wave goodbye to Russ would bring peace to my soul. You know what I mean? But maybe they call it the Corona Cup. I don't know. Listen, we're just spitballing ideas. I don't think they're going to call it that either. But what if they did? You know what I mean? We're copyrighting that bad boy.
They'd get no sponsors.
Yeah,
none whatsoever.
Except for the virus itself. All right, so let's move on here. I mean, I think that's pretty much where we stand.
Yeah.
Don't come back too early. I don't.
No.
Listen, I'm selfish and I want to talk about basketball. And I started a basketball podcast on the eve of a fucking world pandemic. So yeah, there's a little selfishness here that says, I miss basketball. I don't miss being depressed game to game by the Sixers. I'll tell you that. I don't miss watching Al fucking Horford play basketball. I don't miss watching Alec Burks have a green light that never ceases.
Right.
You know what I mean? But whatever. Let's move on. So the G League. Let's talk about the G League now. If you guys have been paying attention, we have been watching essentially a small exodus of players, of high-ranked players that were committed to college teams, who have now decommitted from those college teams and committed to going to the G League, which I think a lot of people read these tea leaves probably 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago when they started restructuring pay grades for the G League players. And now it's happening. Just seems like a better path. I mean, I know you've done some digging. Why don't you go ahead and tell me what you found? You're the smart one here.
So so far there's 3 top 20 according to ESPN high school players. 2 of them decommitted. The number 1 prospect, who actually never made a decision, decided on doing this new G League thing.
Okay.
So I want to take a step back, though, because I think it's important to talk about the D League, G League generally, because like I just said, it was the D League, the developmental league, right? And it was supposed to be kind of like baseball, where guys that aren't good enough to be on your roster, you put them on this team in this league and let them develop. Right? It did not go well for a long time. It was very strange. There was teams sharing D-League teams, which is super weird. Why would I share prospects with another team? Which shows that they didn't take it serious. It definitely doesn't make any money, but neither does single A baseball, you know? But also they had weird rules. Like you could only send a guy down to the D League twice and then he couldn't come back anymore. So it was very, very strange. Fast forwarding, right? Or actually, the other thing too is they weren't getting any real prospects.
Yeah.
Right, because there was no money. They were making like $50,000. Right, and they're riding buses. You know, not taking these like private jets and stuff. So it made more sense for them to go overseas and just play and make money over there, even in a lesser league. So you fast forward, the NBA gets a deal with Gatorade, right? Change the name to the G League, which increases the salary, like you were talking about. Right now, they can increase player salary. This incentivized every single NBA team to get a G League team. The smart ones were doing it for a long time. The Spurs, the Rockets, trying all types of weird stuff. Danny Green is like one of the most successful D-League/G League players ever, developing and then coming up when he was ready in San Antonio. But even then, like salaries are like $100,000, which is great. I'm 18 years old making $100,000. I'm taking that. But for these other guys, it's like I can go to school for free, expose myself in a different way, or go overseas and make even more, depending on how talented I am. Like Brandon Jennings, right? Going over to Italy for a year and then coming back and getting drafted. But what the G League did this year for these specific guys, and looks like it's going to be the program moving forward, is that instead of those guys being drafted onto a G League team, they're going to basically be their own team. They're going to work out in Los Angeles, get paid $500,000, along with what seems to be some kind of like educational, like lifestyle courses about like financing, money managing, all different types of things. And then play exhibition games against G League teams. Okay. So they're not going to have like a season, and they're not going to do a ton of traveling. It's mostly like a gap year to work on their game before they get drafted. And that number 1 recruit is like Jalen Green. He's supposed to be projected to be the number 1 overall pick in 2021. So it was a pretty big deal. Now, I do want to say that this is not the first time a player has gone straight to the G League. When it was to the D League, a guy named Latavius Murray, Latavius Williams, went straight to the D League. He was going. He couldn't. I think it was Arizona. Same thing with Brandon Jennings. They, shocker, weren't great students.
Yeah.
Didn't do too well on the SAT or ACT either. So he was going to follow in those footsteps, but then decided that it made more sense for him to stay home because he didn't want to go to a foreign country. 2 years later, he did end up getting drafted in this late second round in 2010, but obviously didn't make a ton of noise. He was only 6'8", and he was playing power forward, but with no skill really.
Gotcha.
Very raw, athletic guy. But anyway, so this isn't super new. What's new is the program.
Yep.
Allowing these guys to basically work out a very favorable playing schedule, already be on the NBA's salary, right? But kind of being free agents still.
Yeah.
So this is completely unheard of. It's super fascinating. And if you are, a top high school player, could you maybe you can turn down $100,000, right? Because the G League is not going to get the same exposure that Duke's going to get, that Ohio State or Syracuse, right? But can you turn down $500,000? And if other top recruits are going, so are the endorsements, so are the scouts. Why would you?
Yeah. No, and even to that point, what is I don't know. You probably know better the benefits of college exposure. Going to Duke, how does that benefit some of these guys? But it just seems like a no-brainer. A lot of these guys are coming from situations where they don't have the money they are in desperate need of money. They're playing a waiting game with the NCAA, where they're not going to get paid, not allowed to sell their likeness, which we're going to talk about in a second, not allowed to sell any of their shit, not allowed to profit from their time in college. And they're waiting, hoping that their team, that their parents or their family can succeed. And then you find out anyway that there are boosters who are probably taking care of their families on the side. And if the NCAA finds out, then they're going to get penalized for it anyway. So what's the fucking point? You know what I mean? Why, if you have an opportunity, a real opportunity to get to the NBA, what's the point? And even to Brandon Jennings' credit, one thing that we should point out, like you said about not being great students, I think people could misconstrue that in some ways without understanding how poor the educational system is in this country, especially for at-risk youths that live in the inner city, where the educational system is not necessarily geared to them. The SATs don't ask questions in a way that is geared to the way that they understand the English language. And sometimes that can hold them back. So maybe he couldn't get into college. Doesn't mean he's not smart. Well, he goes overseas. And mind you, he was in that. Did you watch that documentary? I think I told you about it. That had Brandon Jennings. I can't remember what the fuck it was called. It was a basketball documentary. It had Brandon Jennings, Kevin Love, Michael Beasley was in it. Jared Bayless, by far the worst basketball player that exists in this documentary.
A really good college player though.
Yeah, but trash generally in the documentary. But it was the first time I realized that Michael Beasley could have been the next anybody he wanted to be, essentially, if he could have gotten it straight. I mean, if you watch the documentary, he's just dominating. I think they go to Rucker at one point. He's just fucking around, which becomes a kind of what his career becomes. He's just fucking around the whole time.
I watched him at Kansas State. He was amazing.
He just was. You just seen him go in and out of giving a shit, but was just dominating.
Yep.
But credit to Brandon Jennings. Shortly after that, goes overseas, makes some money, comes back, gets drafted. Has a quiet career, scores 50, like we talked about.
He scored a double nickel.
Yeah, scored a double nickel as a rookie. Yeah, as a rookie. And whatever. And he's the first one I remember doing this. And now with that said, you're starting to see the NCAA all of a sudden are starting to relax some rules. You know what I mean? Because I think that this has probably shook them a little bit, rightfully fucking so. You know what I mean? You were you were bringing in players for no incentive. They weren't getting an education. You're giving them a free education when they're not even there to get one. And everybody fucking knows it.
Right.
So it's bullshit. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
been bullshit. Everyone knew
Yeah.
it was bullshit, and they acted like they cared, and then they penalized these players for they're making $1 off of their own likeness or their own work.
Mm-hmm.
And you pushed it too far. And the NBA, credit to the NBA, even though the NBA and the NCAA have always had like a handshake kind of partnership, I'm surprised that this happened this way. It almost seems like, it's always been kind of like an unspoken thing. Like they, hey, I scratch your back, you scratch my back. Players can't come without doing 1 year in college or after a certain age, blah, 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 to make sure that the college system is still replenished. But then G League comes in. This is going to happen a lot more often. I would expect this to actually be in 5 years, 10 years or so, this will be the trend. There will be players who want to win college championships or who come from more affluent backgrounds who can waste the time in college, can afford to. But for the guys that can't afford to, like imagine a guy like LeBron, at that level coming out of college. Why the fuck would he spend a year in college? Ben Simmons makes the documentary about how he didn't even want to fucking go to college. It was a waste of his time. It was bullshit. He would have done this easily.
Yeah, he definitely would have. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this is. What do you expect to how does college respond? How do you think the NCAA responds to this?
So there's a lot. I don't even know, but I would say that what you're going to hear more and more is the benefit of good coaching. Mm-hmm. So until this G League program starts getting coaches to the caliber of Coach K, Krzyzewski, mm-hmm. Roy Williams, whatever. Mm-hmm, sorry, blanking. All these other great coaches, Jay Wright. Sorry, shit.
Yeah.
All these other great coaches that do in fact make their players better. Mm-hmm. That's going to be their selling point as far as the athletics. Mm-hmm. And like you will hear all the best players who played, even like the 8 months that they're there in today's game. Mm-hmm. Like Jordan would credit so much to Dean Smith, right? Mm-hmm. But even though like Zion or Kyrie only played for Coach K for less than a year, he still helped their game, even if it was just a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be their big selling point. So they might not get – so like these guys who are like bound to be lottery picks no matter what they do, mm-hmm. maybe they don't go.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe they just work out. But if you're outside the top 20 rankings, mm-hmm. then it probably makes more sense for you to still go. Mm-hmm. You can continue to develop your game, but also get like real exposure.
Yeah, that exposure. Yeah.
Real high levels of exposure. Because mm-hmm. the thing is like, there's something to talk about. Like there's something to say for like having poise mm-hmm. and being able to live in the moment and also have a feel for the game. And when you're only playing exhibition games, there's not a lot at stake. Mm-hmm. Right. So they're not, these guys are not going to play in a Big East tournament. They're not mm-hmm. going to play in a March Madness. Right. They're just going to be playing, which is great, which is fine. But there's something to be said, if you're in to lead a team to a Final Four, to take all the big shots, to guard the best player, and you can only do that in those moments, right? Mm-hmm. Be able to prove that you won't wilt mm-hmm. is a huge thing, especially if I'm using an asset like a first, second, or third overall pick on you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point. I think that's a good point. Although I do think, I mean, maybe this is a pipe dream, what I'm about to say here, which is possible. It's coming from me, and I say things that are unlikely all the time. I mean, is it possible that some of these college coaches, and who knows, this is a conflict of interest, so I don't even know if the NCAA would allow this, that these college coaches would maybe make appearances at some of these things if they really care about the well-being of the players like they claim they do. I mean, they claim to care in that way. Maybe some of them do, maybe some of them don't. Would they show up for some of these players anyway just to help them out, just to help coach, give pointers? A day here, a day there. You don't think so? I want to say yes, they do. I want to say they do give a shit, and they're going to be there sometimes.
They would lose their jobs.
Probably. Would they though?
For the NBA. Yeah.
You think Jay Wright would lose his job?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
The NBA wouldn't even let him do that. He'd have to be an NBA coach.
Oh, I see.
He would have to get hired as he couldn't just come in and be like, hey, let me help you guys out.
I feel like there are like coaches that are just like Coach K is bigger than college basketball. Is he going to get fired? Who is he going to get fired? He get a job tomorrow. You know what I mean? Even if the NCAA fired him, there'd be 30 NBA teams calling for him. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I don't know if 30 NBA teams.
Not 30. It's not gonna be 30. It's gonna be 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be 10 of them.
You'd be surprised about how many like professionals, players, executives, owners wouldn't want something like that in their building.
As long as the Knicks exist as a franchise, Vic, they're always going to do it.
But the thing is, he wouldn't want to coach the Knicks, though. I can't see.
If he wants to make a quick $30 million, I beg to differ.
But the thing is, like, these guys, they could have done that a long time ago. There's a reason that they stay in college. And like, part of that is, like, the love of the school, of the amateur game, and the integrity. Coach K wouldn't do that, and that's why he is Coach K.
I got you.
So, no, they would have to become G League coaches to coach these kids, coach these players.
Yep.
And they would not do that.
And no, one last thing, too, to your credit, you mentioned about the smarter teams have been using the D League / G League for a long time. I mean, one of the most famous examples for the basketball layman who may not know this is that the Rockets, the Vipers, is that their team? The Houston Vipers, I think, something like that.
Sure.
I think it's called the Houston Vipers. They essentially took the idea of just shooting rebounds or making layups. I'm just shooting rebounds. 3-pointers or layups. That's what I do, is shoot rebounds. I grab them. I shoot shots I know we're going to miss so I can get the rebound. That's what you call shooting rebounds. The Moses Malone special, I add that into my game. No, it's either shoot 3-pointers or fucking Jesus, 3-pointers or layups. All right, 3-pointers or layups, and they won a championship that way in the D League. So essentially, the Rockets organization was testing out this way of playing basketball before. I think this is pre-James Harden, maybe, or at the very beginning of James Harden when they first make the trade for him. And that's essentially how they adopted the game into the NBA. That's why a big reason why the NBA is the way it is right now is not just Steph. I think people credit Steph and Clay and that movement for that, but every NBA team knows they don't have Steph or Clay. A lot of it has to do with the Rockets, either threes or layups. That's why the mid-range game is phasing out and all that. But it started there with the Houston Vipers, I think it was called.
The Spurs, they run the same exact offense and defense with their G League team to see if guys are ready, and when they come up, they fill in seamlessly. But the league as a whole, though, also tries things out. So like the new rules, like the 14-second shot clock after a rebound, like I'm pretty sure they started that with the G League. They were even considering doing a 1-for-2 free throw thing in the G League to see how that worked to keep up the pace of the game.
Yeah, no, and the Elam ending, and I've mentioned this on this podcast before, the Elam ending was obviously tried in the All-Star game. Before there's a full season of it, it'll be in the G League, almost 100%. You know what I mean? Before anyone sees it in an actual NBA game that counts towards the standings, we'll see it in the G League. And I think that could happen as early as this. I mean, well, considering what's happening now, who knows? But I would say that could happen either this year or next year. I think probably more likely next year, that we see the Elam ending become a thing in the G League before it becomes a thing in the NBA. So, cool, good discussion. Let's move on. So now you wanted to do why don't you give me your motivation for wanting to do this? You wanted to do essentially. I went a lot of 90s players. I'm going to be honest with you. Everything is 90s player here. Tell me what you told me yesterday.
So what I want to do was look back at guys that we may have forgotten because their games didn't necessarily fit the era they played in, which is a conversation that happens more and more. But there's so many guys. Especially as like longtime fans, you see so many players rotate in and out of the league. So I thought that we could look at some guys pre-2000s, and I'm going to tell you right now, I cheated on my last one because he's such I think he's so fascinating that I had to bring him up at the end.
Is he a point guard?
No.
Do you have a point guard on your list?
No.
I can't
No.
fucking believe that. I thought 1,000,000% there was one guy you were gonna pick for sure, and I'm gonna be surprised that you don't say him.
Actually, I have 4 guys.
Oh, okay. So there's
I
a
thought
4th
I
guy.
had
That's the
3.
one
I
I'm
have
guessing.
4. Yeah, I do have 1 point guard.
Okay. Is he from the 70s, perhaps?
No.
Oh shit. Okay, so I'm wrong. You don't have Pistol Pete, huh?
No,
That's
because
that's a.
the thing is like I
Uh-huh.
wanted to talk about guys that people probably don't remember,
Yeah.
and like a lay NBA fan, like someone who just watches
Mhm.
dunks on House of Highlights
Mhm.
would probably never have seen this person.
Yeah. No, and I think too. So one thing I want to add here is I think one of the good things that we're trying to do on this podcast, why we are the better podcast. Okay, this is why we're the fucking shit. It's because we want to give texture to the NBA, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're giving texture to the MJ as the GOAT. What does that even mean? I had a conversation with a younger dude recently, who was like, well, who was before MJ? They didn't understand who was before MJ, and I'm like, well, I mean, besides Magic and Larry, there's like Jerry West and Rick Barry, and there's Oscar Robertson. There's a lot of guys before MJ that are at different times considered the best players of all time.
Yep.
And what this is about to do, what I'm glad about the list I picked here, is that this is going to add some texture to the NBA. Guys that it's like these are those guys that you're like, man, that guy was good. He may not be a Hall of Famer, but you knew he was good. He could get a bucket or he could do a bunch of different things on the court. So, so this is good. Let's start it off. Who's the first name on your list?
So, the guy near and dear to early 2000s Sixers fans is Derek Coleman.
Oh, let's go, Derek Coleman.
Yes, Derek Coleman, 6'10", sort of do it all, skilled, athletic, and career just never panned out for lots of reasons. In particular, I think he just got so disinterested all the time of just having to stay by the block.
Mm-hmm.
Be at the elbow, set screens and roll, when he was so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So much more than that. A lefty in the post or the big man position, which is like not a thing that happens super often. And a guy that liked to take jump shots.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't shoot a lot of threes, which is going to be a theme for this list because that's not what, bigs did.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was drafted, I think he's drafted in 91.
Yeah, he was definitely. I thought he was drafted early.
90.
Mm-hmm.
Drafted 1990. So yeah, but if you look at his statistics, his shooting percentages got better, like as they got further away from the rim. Mm-hmm. So like from 3 to 10 feet, he shot really well, which is highest percentages, and then shoots really poorly between like 10 and 16 feet from the rim. But then 16 feet out, he actually shoots better.
Wow.
So definitely a jump shot, but a guy that could have been like he could be the center of your offense because he can handle the ball. He can beat guys off the dribble. He was athletic before he started getting hurt. A good passer, not a great passer, but a good passer. And today he would have been the quote unquote small ball 5, but he's still 6'10", long arms, and was a freak in nature. So yeah, young Derek Coleman would be a problem in 2020.
Yeah. There's 2 things I remember about Derek Coleman. One thing that's not funny and one thing that is funny. The one thing that's not funny, we'll start there. Well, I forgot who it was. There was a quote, and I don't know if it was Charles Barkley who said this or Shaq for some reason. I'm thinking who said this. That was basically said like Derek Coleman is like the lost, like the lost career or whatever. Like if there
Bill
was
Simmons
someone
says that a lot too.
Well, who says?
Bill Simmons says that a lot too.
Oh, Simmons says it a lot too. But somebody who played against him who said Coleman was the guy. Like that was it. You know what I mean? They knew that if Coleman put it together, he was going to be like one of the more terrifying players in the league. And actually, I'm pretty sure you go on YouTube and type in Derek Coleman highlight, and you can watch it. You'll watch a 5-minute highlight film. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube of him just like wrecking the rim, just being a destructive force. I mean, he was almost as athletic as Charles Barkley was, but 6 inches taller. So, almost like a smaller Shaq, almost you could say. But again, like you said, to your credit, with touch. Now, the funny thing I remember is that when we got him when it was already falling apart for him, and he was just overweight all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him and Clarence Weatherspoon just looked like the two fattest people on the court at any given moment of a basketball game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a team. That Clarence Weatherspoon, Derek Coleman combination later gets replicated in some way when we bring Andrew Bynum here, and you're like pairing him with Elton Brand, and it's just like, oh, it's falling apart again. You see, that's history for the Sixers. If you're a Sixers fan, it's like goes good for a short period, and then it starts falling apart, and we start getting all these fat guys who have fucked up knees, and that's the end of it. And that's what I remember the most growing up as a Sixers fan about the Derek Coleman, Clarence Weatherspoon Sixers, and Dana Barros. We could put on this list, honestly. Dana Barros was Steph before Steph in like a very, very perfect world. Dana Barros, I think he scored 60 one time. I might be wrong. I'm going to task you to look up his career high while I talk about my first guy. Okay. Was there anything you wanted to add about Derek Coleman before we move on?
No, man, go ahead.
All right, I'm going to go big too then. I'm going to go with Cliff Robinson. And unlike you, so you said you like the guys on your list are not necessarily the 3-point. My shitty mustache is getting in my lips. That your guys didn't go necessarily 3-pointers. I went the opposite. I went with guys in the 90s that were not allowed to shoot 3-pointers, and in today's NBA would have the greenest of lights to be allowed to shoot threes. And Cliff Robinson is exactly that. Mm-hmm. Cliff Robinson, it's important to note that at different points, so one, he's 6'10", and he played small forward for a good 6 years of his career at 6'10", and he did not move like Kevin Durant. Now, he moved well at the time. So at that time of the NBA, like we talked about the Knicks last week, that they essentially started 3 power forward centers, with Anthony Mason, Oak, and Patrick Ewing. Cliff Robinson is like that Anthony Mason guy. In today's NBA, he is a small ball, quote unquote, center. At the very least, is a power forward in the likes of Kristaps, who is a power forward who could step away from the rim and shoot. He shot from three. He shot 36% for his career. Now this is early 90s into early 2000s. That's incredible to think about. There are none of the guys in the 90s, or not none of the guys, but it's rare to see people shoot that high of a percentage from three. 36% is a good 3-point percentage in today's NBA. That's like an average 3-point percentage. In the 90s, that's a fantastic 3-point percentage. And in today's NBA would be shooting, he shot 4.4 a game. In today's NBA would be, no, I'm sorry. Am I wrong? No, he shot three a game. In today's NBA, that'd be closer to 6. And even with that said, not shooting that many threes, his career high in average, he averaged 21 points a game in 94-95 for Portland. He is the second best player on that Portland team, arguably. Unless I'm missing I could be missing somebody, but it's really Clyde and Cliff. Who else is on that team? I'm missing somebody.
Terry Cummings.
Terry Cummings, yeah. There's a couple guys, and Cliff is who I'm sure we're going to actually get exposure to on Sunday. I think they talk about, if you've been circling Twitter, you see the quote of MJ being offended by being compared to Clyde, which he then effectively eliminates in that finals. But Cliff Robinson was an excellent player, would be a stretch 5 in today's NBA, would be allowed to shoot, didn't grab a lot of rebounds, averaged 5 rebounds a game, which is trash for a 6'10" player in most cases, but that shows kind of the point. Very Kristaps in that way. You know what I mean? One block a game, not a super defensive presence, but that's the point. I mean, he would be allowed to step away and shoot from the basket. Is there anything you want to add about Cliff Robinson before your next guy?
No, that's a great one. I haven't thought about him in a while. But I also would like to say, though, Derek Coleman will shoot threes now.
For sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, 100%. I'm just referencing to your point that you didn't want to go 3-point heavy. I went 3-point heavy. You know what I mean? I'm talking about the guys who are the next Steph and Kristaps. He's the only one I can think of, 7-footer who wants to shoot threes all day and can't post up.
I came up with a 5th guy while you were talking, so we can both.
Oh, shit. Okay, we're going to do 5 now. Let's do it.
Dana Barros' top scoring performance, 50 points versus the Rockets in 95.
I think we lose that game if I'm not. Oh no, but was he on the Sixers during that game?
I have no idea. It doesn't
Yeah, I
say.
can't remember. I'll look it up. Who's your next guy?
My next guy I'm gonna say is Danny Manning.
Oh, okay.
All right, so he was an all-star, but not a household name. Played most of his most important years of his career with the Clippers, and that's kind of why. Was a very good college player. Well, probably, I'm sure, a very good high school player as well, but I didn't watch him. The difference with Danny Manning's career and what it would have been is he also would have been shooting a lot more threes.
Mm-hmm.
He was 6'10". He wasn't necessarily the greatest rim protector, but had a post game, but a nice, beautiful, fluid jump shot and a very good handle for a guy his size too. Not Kevin Durant level handle, but for a center, a good handle.
Mm-hmm.
And he would have been shooting a ton of threes if he played now. A very, very nice stroke. Him too, his shooting percentages, like Derek Coleman, get better when he gets further away from the rim. So with very close to the rim, between 3 and 10 feet, very, very good. But that 10 to 16 feet range, he's off. He's not awful, but not great. And then it gets better when he gets 16 feet out. So they definitely would have been pushing that to like 22, 23 feet and would have been a very solid three-point shooter. And very versatile too. If teams go small, he's posting up whoever he got on the block.
Now, Danny Manning, he doesn't even play long with Barkley, right? Am I wrong? He doesn't play that long with Charles, right? I think he's only with Charles for 2 years, if that.
Oh,
on
with
the Suns.
On the Suns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because after that, I mean, he gets to the Suns in 95.
Yeah. Okay.
So Barkley's only there till like 96. Or by 96, he might have already been on. No, he wasn't. I think 97 was his first year on the Rockets.
Yeah, where Chuck then goes to championship chase and forgets that he ever did that. But it's fine. Listen, we're not here to shit on Chuck. We just praised Chuck a week ago. I'm not here to take the praise away from him. I just want to point that out, that he did championship chase at one point, and joined Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon to try to win a championship.
Oh, and then Scottie Pippen joined that team.
Oh, and Scottie Pippen joins that team, yes, and big-headed Kevin Willis, who could also be on this list, actually. But anyway.
Yeah, he definitely could have.
Yeah, for sure. All right, great. Danny Manning's a good one. I looked up Dana Barros, so he was on the Sixers at that time. Dana Barros' career three-point percentage, you want to take a guess?
42?
Oh, shit. Oh, man, I felt like I was going to fuck you up. It was 41%.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's excellent. Excellent. But you know what? Anytime you ask a question like that, like me, right? When somebody says, you wouldn't believe how expensive this was, guess how much it was, I go and say $15,000. You know what I mean? Like, I go all the way. I don't because I don't want to be surprised. Don't just tell me how much it was. I don't want to play the game. You know what I mean? So I would have said like 53% or something like that. He was shooting 50% easy. All right, cool. Let's move on. All right, so my next guy, I got Glenn Rice. Now, Glenn Rice he wasn't my favorite basketball player growing up. Charles Barkley was my favorite basketball player growing up. And right behind that was like Reggie and then Glenn Rice, who I loved. I loved Glenn Rice's game.
Reggie Miller?
Reggie Miller, yeah.
Okay.
I always wanted to be a shooter growing up. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted to be because, I was big and get your ass down by the basket. Nobody wants to see you out here. Get to the basket. You're
Derek Coleman, man.
Yeah, Derek Coleman. You know what I mean? Yeah, same weight issues, all the same things. So Glenn Rice was a guy that I looked up to growing up, and for a few years in the league, he was like the real deal. I mean, his 96, 97 averages 27 points a game. Was that Hornets team was fun as shit. You know what I mean? Like that Hornets team is a banging team. Muggsy, Glenn, I think Alonzo might still be there. I think Larry Johnson is still there. and it's just like a fantastic team, like a fantastic '90s team, the best uniforms maybe ever. But like right behind the Grizzlies uniform at that time, which at the time wasn't great, but now has aged extremely well. Um,
Yeah.
but Glenn Rice, career averages of 18 points a game, 85% free throw shooter, 40% 3-point percentage. Just a man kind of, uh, not to say ahead of his time, but is uh, yeah, a little bit ahead of his time. You know what I mean? He was a 3-point specialist in today's NBA. That's exactly what he would be. But he was still a player who could put the ball on the ground, could get to the rim. He could literally do everything on the court. He averaged his career high in free throw attempts is 7 a game, which no surprise ties with his career high in points at 27 a game. I'm not gonna say he was T-Mac before T-Mac because that's too much. T-Mac was better, but I would say was kind of similar in the way that he just had a smooth game, a smooth jump shot. Was an excellent player. He spends a couple years on the Lakers. It's a little bit unfair. I think part of the reason why he gets remembered unfairly is because shortly after I think Shaq retires, he kind of says that when he went to the Lakers, he thought Glenn Rice was going to be like Glenn Rice, 27 a game, 22 a game, Glenn Rice, and that it was going to be Glenn and Shaq. And at that point, it was little did they know Glenn was on the back half of his career, and his points go down literally every year before the Knicks take him on because that is what the Knicks do. And, shortly thereafter, he's out of the league. So he's a guy who in today's NBA, I mean, would fit right the fuck in. You know what I mean? He would fit right in. Career average, again, 18 points a game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Just your typical shooting guard. Small forward, shooting guard, whatever. Could I wonder if how tall was he actually?
Maybe I was thinking power forward, man.
Yeah, he's 6'7", and certain lineups could definitely stretch. It could be a stretch 4. So yeah, Glenn Rice. That's my next guy.
Yeah, Glenn Rice was awesome. Pure jump shooter. Wasn't the kind of athlete that like a T-Mac was, so that's why I think he'd be best suited in 2020 as a power forward, so he wouldn't have to try and run with these guys on the perimeter. But yeah, definitely would have been a lot better now. My next guy was the guy I just thought of is going to be Rodney Rogers.
Oh, Rodney Rogers. Okay.
Yeah, Rodney Rogers. 6'7", but a lot bigger and stronger and more athletic than a lot of people remember. He also was, or is rather, left-handed. And for his career, shot 45% from the field, but his effective field goal percentage was about 50. His 3-point percentage, though, for basically a power forward in his playing time, and he was drafted in 93, was 35% from 3. And he only took, for his career, two shots a game from 3-point range.
Yeah.
So to be basically a small ball 5, to be built like Zion, be athletic, and people don't remember. If you're listening, you haven't seen 90s Rodney Rogers, just Google him. Look at them highlights. Boy got up. And shoot 35% from 3 like Zion would kill for that.
Yep.
Zion would kill for that percentage. So, yeah, he's not the same kind of passer, or maybe not even as good as a ball handler. So I think, honestly, Zion's best attribute might be his passing. But a guy that definitely can come off the bench, be in spurts your center, not be the greatest rim protector, but at least be able to challenge some shots, but open up the offense. Right? You can't just leave Rodney alone in the corner. You can't just leave him alone. He's gonna hurt you. And he takes 5 or 6 threes a game. He'll make 4 of them.
You know what? What's funny is you said Rodney Rogers, and this is going to get dark in a second, but only because there was a headline that I remembered, not recently, but I was like, man, there's something I remember about Rodney Rogers, and it's that he's now paralyzed from his shoulders down. He was like in a bad accident, but which is crazy to think about because, like you said, if you Google Rodney Rogers, one of the first things you see on YouTube is remembering the Zion Williamson of the 90s. which is exactly what Rodney Rogers was a athletic freak, could rock the rim. Like you said, if you just Google his highlights, you'll see someone I'm pretty sure Simmons, he's written a bunch of pieces about how shitty the Clippers are and like the Clippers curse. And I think because he spends 3 or 4 years on the Clippers, and I think Simmons credits that time as to why Rodney Rogers' career doesn't trend better than it should have been. But yeah, great pick. Yeah, shout out to Rodney Rogers. All right, let's move on. So I'm gonna go. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna go kind of to your credit. You just said Rodney Rogers, kind of like Zion. I'm gonna go to somebody who maybe in today's NBA, this is messy. Would be kind of like Luka. He would not be like Luka, but I'm gonna just say it just so I can make this transition work. I'm gonna say Tony Kukoc, who we have not seen. He's gone missing.
Okay.
It seems after his time with the Bulls, maybe Jordan buried him with insults, and his body has now gone cold. But there was a time, and in today's, oh shit, I didn't look at this. One of his, let's look at his nicknames real quick. So Croatian sensation, the waiter, that's a funny one, and Euro Magic. Yeah, Tony Kukoc in today's NBA, I think is what we hoped Dario was going to be here on the Sixers. You know what I mean? Was a guy who could really do a lot offensively. He could score, he could shoot, but could also initiate your offense. He played like small forward, power forward, but he was 6'10", and today's NBA would probably play exclusively power forward, I think, just because he was so slight, but could be a center in some small ball lineups. But, only shot three threes a game, which is, again, that's going to be the case because in the NBA in the 90s, 3 threes a game is a lot. Like if you took fucking 90s, I don't know, I can't think of any of the announcers in the 90s. What's Hubie? If you took 90s Hubie Brown and you said, hey, look at this box score from 2020, and he saw James Harden took 13 3-pointers, he'd probably have a fucking heart attack on live TV. So Tony, back to the point that Tony only took 3-pointers a game. Would have been more of a 3-point shooter today, but again, could initiate the offense, was an excellent passer. And I just think that, I think that running into MJ and Pippen in the Olympics may have ruined his career and his life a little bit, probably. And again, I don't think we're going to see him in here, but there was a time, you know what I mean? In fact, yeah, after MJ leaves, he averages 18 points a game for Chicago before, we trade for him and just in typical Sixers fashion, get a guy who's on his way out. Damn, he averaged 20 a game on Atlanta later on. I didn't even realize that. Only played 17 games at that time. I don't know. His career is a mishmash at the end.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So Tony Kukoc, I think we should save a lot of this for our Last Dance pod on Monday.
Yeah.
But I'll just tease it by saying that I have a lot of thoughts about him and about his career arc and what could have been different and maybe what he would have been willing to sacrifice, especially if he doesn't show up on the docuseries, which in my opinion, if he doesn't show up for the Dream Team, which has to be this Sunday, talking about those Olympics, then he's not showing up at all.
Yeah, because the not to step on that, but if they're going to talk about Portland, that's the 92 finals. That's the summer before the Dream Team.
Yep.
So are we not going to see him? Again, I don't think we're going to see him. I think he may be scarred emotionally. And when we get to him, we'll get to him, or when we do an in memoriam for, for the Last Dance, we'll talk about him. But I think that just in today's NBA, you know what I mean? We would be seeing a guy that emulates Luka, or we would be calling him Larry. Probably with the way he moved would be closer to that. And I think GMs and coaches and stuff like that would see this guy and say, man, this is a dude that we could build our offense around. You know what I mean? Who could facilitate the entire offense, could bring up the ball. I mean, there's a reason why Phil calls the last shot for him. It's not because he wants to alienate Scottie Pippen for no reason. You know what I mean? It's because he fucking thinks this guy's capable. So, So, Tony Kukoc, that's the guy. Who's you got next?
Yeah, Yeah, I love Tony. The difference between Tony and Luka is the ball handling.
Yep.
Luka's an expert ball handler. I think Tony would be kind of like some kind of mixture of Dirk and Peja, where you can initiate the offense, but just also just a deadly shooter.
Yeah. Or
but
you know what? You know what? I'm sorry, not to interrupt you. You know what's a better comparison? Hedo Turkoglu on the Magic. Like Turkoglu's best time on the Magic would be Tony, I think. Even though, but probably a better ball handler still, I would think. But in today's NBA, he would probably be a better ball handler, I would think. You know what I mean? Coming up now.
Maybe because he did start his career in Europe, so and like they make everybody learn everything.
Yeah.
Because people discount ball handling as an athletic skill where it takes a lot of quickness and twitch muscle to actually move your hands and arms that quickly. But I mean, the thing is, he would be better than Tony Kukoc. Maybe not the same kind of like, still not maybe not the same kind of ball handler, but a guy that can get you your points. And I want to mention, you talked about 3-point Tony Kukoc's 3-point attempts in the 90s only being about 3. In the first half of, at the end of the 90s when Ray Allen is drafted in 96, his first 4 years in the NBA, he shoots 3.5, 4.5, 4, and 5 threes a game. And we're talking about Ray Allen.
Yeah, we're talking about what people are arguably would say is the greatest 3-point shooter of all time. And so Steph came and revolutionizes everything. So, and which is funny because one point before we move on about 3-point shooting, not to get too far off topic, there's like a conversation going on about like, well, who's ever going to pass Steph? And the answer about who's going to pass Steph is James Harden, who shoots historically more 3-pointers than Steph does. Not at the same efficient percentage. He'll never pass him in 3-point percentage. But in 3-point makes, James Harden has a good chance to pass Steph in 3-point makes, depending on how their careers end and whatnot, because James just shoots more threes a game. But that's my last point. I'm sorry not to get too far off topic. Go ahead.
So my next guy is going to be one of my favorite PGs ever. The guy who I think probably the most underrated point guard in league history. And this is what I thought that you were going to say because I bring him up.
Oh, shit. You're about to shit on mine, I think. Okay, go ahead.
It's Mark Price.
Son of a bitch.
You have Mark Price?
I have Mark Price. You motherfucking right.
Oh, all right. So
go ahead. Do Mark Price. I'll get someone else.
No. You could also elaborate. Mark Price, so I love him. Only 6 foot tall, but I'm pretty sure was the ACC Player of the Year. Finished his career with 15 points per game, about 7 assists, shoots 47% from the field, which is crazy for a guard, and 40% from 3, 90 from the line, which is just wild. He's basically 50, 40, 90 in the 90s. He only his 3-point attempts for his career are only 3.5. So again, this whole thing. If Mark Price played today, he'd be shooting much more threes. Incredible pick and roll player. Is the guy who's credited for popularizing, if not creating, sort of like the dribble split between double teams, because that's what would happen after a while. He gets that screen from Brad Daugherty or Hot Rod Williams. They start blitzing him. He's dribbling between them. Would have been a much, much, much better player. He's not sort of the same kind of ball-dominant creator that Steve Nash was, but he would have been a lot closer to Steve Nash, and probably would have been more willing to shoot the ball more, while Nash was more reluctant to do so. Love Steve Nash. Would have never been a great defender because he's only 6 foot, not the fastest, quickest, or jump the highest, but offensively could have been, like I said, a Steve Nash sort of Steph Curry light.
Yeah, Mark Price is credited for a lot of the reason why, not credited for a lot of reason why the game is the way today. But when people talk about, put it this way, when people talk about like 3-point shooting point guards, they say, well, he's like Mark Price. They always remind a person of Mark Price. Mark Price, the reason I said Mark Price was because I thought you were going to pick Pistol Pete. So I said, I'm going to go Mark Price just in case. You know what I mean? Because Mark Price is like that. You know what I mean? Now, in that, and even so in that Bull series that we talked about on Monday against the Bulls, when they go 5 and the series of the shot, Mark Price averages 20 and 9 assists. So to your point about him being a pick and roll like mastermind and also a guy who can split dribbles, they talk about that in the documentary, his ability to split double teams. In today's NBA, and now this is the guy too who I was like, I wasn't sure if he was in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he is in the Hall of Fame.
He's not, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and he should be. He should be in the Hall of Fame. There's 4 years where he gets MVP votes in the NBA essentially during the Bad Boy Pistons and leading up, precluding to MJ's reign. He is considered an MVP candidate those years. Yeah, one of the best players of all. Definitely one of the best point guards. If you took let's say you made a non-Hall of Fame team. You said, I'm going to make a team of the best players that are not in the Hall of Fame. Mark Price might be your starting point guard with like Chris Webber as your starting power forward. And that'd be beautiful fucking basketball, except that Chris Webber's going to call a timeout, a ghost timeout at the end. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was playing 2K the other day, right?
Yeah.
This is off topic, as you know, I want to do. I was playing 2K the other day, and Chris Webber's announcing, and he starts talking about fans who talk shit. And he's like, yeah, great players need the fans. To like come at them, make the great players be greater. And I was like, I wonder if he feels that way when people bring up the timeout. You know what I mean? Because, he literally doesn't talk to anybody from that Michigan team.
He's incredibly sensitive.
Yeah, and he's also the worst announcer. I would start a petition.
Yeah, he's pretty bad.
He's terrible. So I don't know what he's talking about sometimes. I was watching Game 7 of the Clippers Spurs, which is which, you know what, actually, this is a good aside. We're going to come back to Mark Price in 1 second. Maybe not. Mark Price, you're fantastic, and we love you here.
We can move on.
Yeah, we love you, Mark. All right, keep shooting, baby. Wherever you are. All right, so real quick aside, because I've been shitting on Blake Griffin, and I shitted on him during that series, that 7-game against the Spurs where Chris Paul hits the game winner.
Right.
Blake Griffin averaged 22, 14, and 7 that series. And in Game 7 had 24, 14, and 9 assists. So I should take that back. Now, again, as we've talked about, numbers don't necessarily equal like impactful production or impactful play. But, he was better than I've been giving him credit for, I should say. Because the way I remember that series being and the way I remember Game 7 was Chris Paul hobbling around on a fucked up hamstring and carrying that team essentially. And that is largely what happens, especially in the fourth quarter. Blake kind of starts hot potatoing a good amount down the stretch. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. I want to correct myself because I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not too fucking prideful to correct myself. I'm not going to die on a hill if I was wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, listen, unless it's Drake or something, like I'll die on a Drake hill. Like Christian is writing me a piece about how this Drake. Do you know Drake came out a mixtape today? Do you know that?
I heard something about it last night.
He dropped a mixtape today.
Or this morning.
And it's fantastic. In my opinion. Now, Christian obviously doesn't like it because Christian doesn't fucking like anything. Christian is one of my friends. You don't know this. And he might even listen to this podcast. And you know what? If you're listening to this podcast, I'm talking about you. And I'm not going to say go fuck yourself because you're writing this piece for me. But after you write the piece for me shitting on this Drake CD, I'm going to tell you to go fuck yourself. Be ready for it. And yeah, it's fantastic. Drake makes better mixtapes than albums. Anyway, and I will die on that hill. Okay? But I'm not going to die on the hill about Blake Griffin if I was wrong.
All right. So your next player...
No. Yeah. Well, my next was Mark Price, but you shitted on that. My next player then is going to be Drazen Petrovic.
Oh, yes.
A lot of people have talked about Drazen over the years. You know what I mean? If you don't know, Drazen is oh shit. His nickname, the Mozart of the Hoops. What a fantastic nickname. It's fantastic. Mozart of Hoops. Drazen Petrovic is one of the best. He's in the Hall of Fame. I guess really for what he did overseas. He comes into the NBA at 25. He dies tragically. But his NBA career is unfulfilled. Before he dies, he's averaging 22 points a game though. 4 assists, 3 rebounds. But it's the shot. He's shooting 44% from three. Before he dies, he shoots 45% from three. But again, only on 2.4 attempts a game. In today's NBA, it would have the ultimate green light. This dude was an offense onto himself. And I think a lot of people were expecting him to maybe not necessarily go head to head with MJ. I think at the time people were thinking that he could ascend to that level. But in retrospect, I don't think everyone realizes now there was never going to be any player ever in the history of the NBA that was ever going to ascend to MJ's level. But again, dies tragically, an unfulfilled career. But him going to the Hall of Fame, I think, is even to his credit because he dies at 29. Again, a life like unfulfilled, and people just knew his overseas accomplishments and his talent, which I think sometimes is what I think the NBA Hall of Fame gets right sometimes, right? Is that they see a guy like Bill Walton, who may not have the career numbers to support a Hall of Fame candidacy. They view it in the scope that's like, yeah, but his ceiling, everyone knew what it was. They knew that this guy could be the best guy. And they will reward the Hall of Fame based on that, except for Chris Webber, who we just shitted on, but probably should be in the Hall of Fame.
He definitely should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he should be in the Hall of Fame. As much as it pains me to say it, you know what I mean? We got to call a timeout here. I got to stop the timeout jokes, right? It's over, right? I should stop the timeout. I mean, call a timeout on him, I should say. You know what I mean? But the NBA does a great job of rewarding guys based on their ceilings, not necessarily always on their production. And that, I think, is partly why Drazen ends up in the Hall of Fame, or even along the same lines, Arvydas Sabonis, who I was actually going to put on this list too, who is essentially the original Joker, ball handling, passing big man.
Better athlete though.
Yeah, and a better athlete, correct. Well, who knows if he's a better athlete? Joker comes in overweight every year. He might be a better athlete than we know.
Nope.
If you're listen, as someone who knows from experience, okay, when you carry around a few 100 pounds of fat in an off season and then come around running around, you may not look super athletic, but it's there. So Drazen Petrovic, I just wanted to give him that love. Was kind of actually, I would say, maybe not undersized shooting guard, but 6'5". I guess that's
solid.
Yeah, that's solid. I mean, that's Dwayne Wade height, arguably. Yeah. So yeah, Drazen Petrovic, that's my last guy. I think everyone should know. This is a blueprint. This is the blueprint for for Pejas or the Clays and stuff and players like of that caliber, that type of player. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's my
fiery competitor
for sure.
My last guy, you're gonna laugh, is Mehmet Okur.
Okay. All right, Mehmet Okur. Okay, let's go about Mehmet.
Do you remember?
I remember Mehmet. Yes, I remember him. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm trying any joke. I'm just shooting him.
Was an NBA champion, or is an NBA champion, and a one-time All-Star. Okay.
Was he an All-Star?
Oh, he was.
Wow, I didn't realize he was an All-Star.
Oh, he was. 2005-06 season. He was an All-Star.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He was 18, 9, and 2.4 assists a game.
In all fairness, in 2005, 2006, there are no centers in the NBA. It's Shaq and nobody else, and Mehmet Okur. So somebody had to go to the All-Star game as a center. Oh, but he goes as a power. Well, he's listed here as a power forward. I'm sorry.
Yeah. He played most of his time at him and Carlos Boozer, Jesus, which kind of shared minutes there, and then crunch time he'd be the 5 because he played with Greg Ostertag for a long time.
Yeah, I remember Greg Ostertag as well.
Yeah, well, we're gonna see a lot of Greg Ostertag getting dunked on and his ass laid up by Jordan in a few.
We're gonna see it soon. Yep, that's true.
Yeah. But yeah, so Mehmet Okur, just another one of these big guys who would have just been a better, more viable player in 2020 because of his fluid jump shot. He also was a bit more fluid, just athletically, than I think people remember. I'm not by any means, I'm not saying he's Anthony Davis, right? But wouldn't be Jahlil Okafor in a switch, but I guess closer to Jahlil than Davis. But anyway, the jump shot, right? The jump shot. in his career, 5 of his 10 seasons in the league, he shoots 37% or higher from the 3-point line. He's only taking about 3 a game for his career, but again, that would be closer to 6. And if you can still hit 35% at the center position, taking 6 threes a game, you're incredibly valuable because, again, you can't be left alone out there. That high screen and roll pick and pop, if you have a perimeter guy that can penetrate or just create on his own, having a guy like Memo Okur on your team would be incredibly valuable, even if he is just coming off the bench. Not a rim protector.
No.
Like let's say like a Kristaps. But an opportune rebounder. If you go back and watch some of his games, not that you ever would or should, he has a couple of game winners against teams like the Spurs where he hides out in that like dunker spot, low zone kind of area. When his man goes to help on the dribble drive, he gets the offensive rebound, goes up. He did that, I think, twice to the Spurs. If it wasn't in the same season, it was like in back-to-back seasons where he wins a game off offensive rebound. So, yeah, so I had to end on that on him because he's by far the most obscure person on my list.
Yeah, you know what's talking about Mehmet Okur feels like when this all first started, the social distancing stuff, when Twitter went on that run that was like, have you seen highlights of this obscure person? Wait till you see these like fucking, I can't even think of, I can't even think of one. Like, I can't think. But wait till you see these Tim Hardaway Jr. highlights here. You know what I mean? And it's like, what? Look at these Alfred Payton highlights or something. You know what I mean? And that's what Mehmet Okur feels like. But you know what? To
all-star Mehmet Okur.
Sure. To his credit, or to somebody's credit, I don't know. To the Utah Jazz fans' credit, I guess. I don't know. You might see him in a couple. If you just want on a couple NBA Classic games, you might see him just off the strength that you could watch like Darren Williams in his prime, who at the time was compared to Chris Paul. And Darren Williams spent a few years playing with Okur and Carlos Boozer, and to his credit is part of the reason why they were a good team. I mean, they were always top 4 in the West at that time, and I think people always gave the credit to Carlos Boozer, but Carlos Boozer is most known for regenerating a hairline when he went to Chicago for whatever reason.
The ink, the dye. Yeah,
that was disgusting. You know, it looked like mascara was running at the end of game. You know what I mean? It didn't look like that, but it was not good. It wasn't good. No, okay, I'm gonna add one last guy since we both had Mark Price.
All right, do it.
I am going to add Dennis Scott.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because a few years ago, I guess it was the Magic when they had their I completely forgot that they had a documentary on the Magic, on that Magic team with Shaq and Penny. And I think people at that time remembered Dennis Scott a lot better because they understood exactly that he would fit seamlessly in today's NBA game. He was considered a small forward at 6'8", which makes sense. I mean, you know, Shaq's height, he looked shorter than that, I swear, but was a sweet shooting small forward, which there really wasn't a lot of, actually, especially not at that time. At this time, I think it's a little bit, even now, I mean, how many sweet shooting small forwards are there in the NBA right now? Luke is not considered a small forward. I mean, listen, I don't know. Positions are getting fucked right now, so who cares?
Yeah.
But it's just, whatever. I guess
I mean, they're probably, there's more now, but traditionally, small forwards in like the 90s, they were Ron Harper, they were Scottie Pippen, they were these athletic freaks of nature that were slashing to the basket.
Yep.
They weren't guys that would just hang around and wait for a spot up 3.
Yep. Correct. And credit to he gets drafted in 90-91. In 91-92 averages 20 points a game at one point. It's a 20-point a game scorer, 4 rebounds, 2 assists that year. For his career, he shoots 40% from 3 on 5 attempts, which is high for the 90s. Again, like we've mentioned, he goes essentially averaging 2 for 5. In today's NBA, you would pretty much just double that. And, you know, he could fit. He would make a lot of teams better. I put it this way. If we replace Toby, who forgot how to shoot, and I don't want to make everything about the fucking Sixers, but, I'm just going to say it. If we replace Toby, who forgot how to shoot three-pointers when he left the Clippers, with Dennis Scott, we would be going to the champ. We'd be finals, and we also have to get Al Horford the fuck out of there. But not to make everything about Al Horford again. So Dennis Scott, you know what I mean, is one of the best players is essentially the third wheel on two, no, they go to the finals once on one finals team.
95.
Yeah, on the 95 finals team. And, it was the optimal player you needed next to Shaq and Penny. You know what I mean? Like, if you were building a team today and you have Shaq and Penny, you would pick Dennis Scott. Literally the perfect three right there. It's like if you're playing NBA Jam, that's an excellent three right there to start with. So Dennis Scott, that's going to be my last throw in right there.
Yeah, he essentially was the better version of Rashard Lewis on the second incarnation of that team. Yeah,
no, that's a great example. That's a great bringing that full circle. When they essentially tried to rebuild, they just forgot that they had Dwight Howard instead of Shaq.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then they remembered in the most excruciating way after.
Yeah. And Vito Turkoglu wasn't Penny Hardaway either.
Yeah. Well, and also remember he signs that contract with Toronto. He signs a big contract with Toronto the next year, and then gets busted for HGH. But Vito
Turkoglu.
I always thought it was weird that he just pops up on that All-Star. He pops up in that All-Star team. I think that's his only All-Star team he's on. And what I thought was weird was there was like a Sunday game. And you know how they like to show players in the locker room or walking down the hall. And in the locker room, Hito was eating the greasiest slice of pizza before the fucking game. And I was like, you're going to play on that? How? And we found out how. He was injecting himself with more HGH. He probably registered as a woman. You know, like a dog would smell pheromones coming off of him, the amount of HGH he was injecting into himself. But that's an exaggeration. Anyway, that's not the point. Dennis Scott, fantastic player, would fit seamlessly in today's NBA, would be better. Because that's really the point. I think all of these guys we mentioned is that in today's NBA would be better than they were, would have more successful careers just because teams are smarter. If you put Dennis Scott, would fit perfectly on the Magic right now. I mean, not on the Rockets right now. Imagine that,
for most of these guys,
every team in the NBA could use.
Yeah, I was gonna say for most of these guys, there's not a team they wouldn't make better in some way.
Yeah, no, you're 100%. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I'm looking at you're 100% right. All right, great. I think that does it. I think we'll end there. Vic, is there anything you wanted to add or anything you want to plug?
Look out for our first political article coming out next week to talk about the 2020 general election.
Yep, it'll be out. It actually probably be out this weekend-ish once I get it posted, but I'm lazy. For something, there'll be that. Look out for there will be a piece talking about the Drake album. There might be two pieces because one is going to shit on it, and I need one that's going to love it, and that's going to be my piece. That, or you know what? I got something in the works here, an idea in the works, a podcast idea. I'm going to keep it hush-hush, you know what I mean? But I think it's going to work, and I think one of the first topics might be the Drake album. So everybody else, wash your stupid fucking hands. Just stay fucking home. Listen, chalk the summer. You know what? I've been positive in the last podcast that we had a chance. But I've been watching too much news, and we don't fucking stand a chance. There's just angry. You know what? I don't even want to get into it. Just a lot of people with guns showing up to governor's office to reopen the country. They just want to die in the most glorious way that they can think of, without doing anything glorious, except for getting sick one time and dying possibly. So stay home. Wash your stupid hands. Don't listen to Elon Musk. All right? He can't even figure out a really good electric car. Those fucking people are always losing money. I'm sorry. This has nothing to do with him. This is about us. Yeah, that's it. That's all we got.
Yo. Yo. Justice for the blind. Just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind. Used to come